Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back. And what we thought we'd talk about this week is something we shared in our community call yesterday. And it's about how do we achieve our goals? And, the typical answer to that, is of course, choose the right goal and break your goals into small steps, be real consistent with your actions. I mean, that's all the practical stuff. But there's something that's probably equally as important that goes unspoken lots of times, and that is be willing to make mistakes. I've always been such a perfectionist all my life. And so I'd set a goal, and boy, I had a narrow channel. I did not want to make a mistake. And so, really, this willingness to make mistakes, this openness to embrace life as it presents itself, is probably one of the most unspoken secrets to success there is. So it was really funny because we were planning to talk about this at the end of our community call. We always start the community call with a cooking demonstration, and we end with this exploration of the relationship our mind has with our relationship with food and life and all of that. So I was doing a demonstration of a new recipe that we're going to share with you today. It's a sweet potato flatbread. It's fabulous. And I had made it before, and I had baked the sweet potatoes, so they were kind of dry. And so I had to add water when I did it before. And I thought, let me just bake the sweet potatoes with a lid on because they stay more moist. So I did that. And as I was going through the demonstration, it was not working. These things were sticky. They weren't rolling out. It's like, oh my gosh.
They were too moist.
They were too moist. There was too much moisture there. So it was a classic example of, I've got this goal. Let me show them this new recipe, and I've tested it. Everything's going to be fine. I've made one little tweak, shouldn't be a problem. It was borderline disaster if, when that first gooiness happened, I wasn't willing to just open and go, oh, well, this isn't working. So what's next? That when we come up against that barrier, that thought, oh my gosh, this isn't working. Oh my gosh, I've made a mistake. What comes up out of that is often what stops us so unnecessarily from achieving our goals. And what it is that comes up, it's always come up for me, and I think for most everybody, is a feeling. I don't want to feel the embarrassment of making a mistake in front of other people, or I don't want to feel the shame that comes up with, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. There's a thought that leads to this feeling that I've tried to avoid all of my life. And that has put the end to a number of goals, important goals, I can say too, in my life. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important thing in what you're saying is when we experience a labeled mistake or a difficulty, that's the time it gets fun, because that's where we can learn. That's where we can create something entirely new. So it's just kind of a perspective. For me, I don't always like it if there's a seeming blockado in the road. But the minute that I look at it in terms of what's here to learn, what's new in this that I haven't experienced before, the road opens and I go forward, and I love the adventure and the experience.
Yeah, I experienced that in my woodworking projects too. I'll have it all designed and I've mocked it up so I've got the dimensions right, but then the joinery comes, and sometimes it's just not working the way I thought it would. And so that can really be frustrating. In fact, in the old days, I would sometimes throw the project against the shop with frustration. And anymore, it's just like, oh, it's like, so what will work here? Instead of shutting down around this feeling, it's the feeling I don't want. I made a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to feel that. So I look for relief, and the relief often is just, let's just end the project. But like Connie's saying, in a way, that's where the fun begins.
Yeah, that's where the
where
fun
the new
begins.
learning is.
Yeah, if we welcome, we've talked about this so many times before, if we welcome whatever occurs instead of resist it, then we learn. Then we go into new territory and it can be really fun. Well, it is fun. Learning is fun.
Yeah. And that can sound very counterintuitive when we've been so conditioned to, avoid these feelings of making a mistake or being judged by another person, being criticized, that kind of thing. But if you go back and watch a baby learning to walk, where there's no concern about anybody judging them or anything else, what's driving them to want to learn to walk? That they fail so many times and it doesn't even faze them, that they just stay open. They're just so focused on the goal, there's something pulling me to learn this thing about locomotion, this movement where I do it on 2 feet instead of crawling on all fours. There's something's pulling them. They've got a vision that's pulling them forward, and they don't get caught in the feelings of embarrassment and shame or guilt or what'll others think, because that all comes later with our conditioned thinking.
Yeah, even when you say, I've made a mistake, it seems really egocentric to me. There's something here to learn, is how I like to approach it. There's something here to learn. This route is directing me to a different route. I'm going to explore it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Welcome it in like a good friend, and see from there what you see to do next.
Yeah. It's like often, planning how to achieve our goals is the easy part, put the steps in place. But then it's being willing to embrace the discomfort that can come up as we hit these blockados in the road, as Connie puts it. Being willing to open and really let go of or move through the discomfort that's created by our conditioned thinking, because that's where the greatest learning is found. And we talked a number of weeks ago about how the purpose in life, rather than achieving a lot of things, and dying with the most toys or whatever some people seem to approach it as, the real purpose of life, when we've asked a lot of people about that, they almost all say is to learn and to grow. And it's this element of learning and growing in our ability to move through the feelings, those negative feelings that are generated when we believe our conditioned thinking. So my conditioned thinking as a perfectionist is, I can't make a mistake or else. Or else what? Or else I'll have this feeling I don't want to feel, but I never got to really exploring it that deeply. So, yeah, we think this is a very, very valuable thing, and it applies to our relationship with food as well. We coach people, or they take our 6-week course, and some of them just want to be the perfect student. They don't want to get anything wrong, and they are so uptight about getting it right that they don't create a natural and healthy and relaxed relationship with food that's sustainable. They put themselves in a straitjacket. So it's all about learning and growing.
Yeah, and next week I want to talk about why I don't set goals. And where is that world, and what is that world all about? But we want to give you the recipe that Bill made yesterday, because it was amazing. Now tell him what you learned from making those. And
yeah. So it's you bake the sweet potatoes, and then you add rolled oats, and you spin it in a food processor. It's that simple. So it's very quick. Then you take that out and you roll it into a log and cut it into 8 parts. and then take each of those, make it into a ball, and then flatten them and make like little breads, little pizza crusts or little pancakes.
Or tortillas.
Or tortillas. They're probably more like a tortilla, about 1/8 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
And so I like to use a rolling pin to get it very uniform and that thin. But with them being that moist, it was just sticking to the rolling pin. It's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get them? So I try my hand and it's all sticking to my hand. I go, oh my gosh. So one of the people on the call, a good friend of ours and just a very experienced chef as well, she said, oh, sometimes I just put that between 2 layers of wax paper. I went, oh, let me get the wax paper. Piece of cake. Take that little ball, set it on a piece of wax paper, another piece of wax paper, squish it down so it's pretty flat already, and then just roll it right to what you want. Peels right off, goes on the air fryer. So we learned that. Then the next thing is that when I was making these, it occurred to me, what if we added more veg into the dough? Yeah. Last week we talked about the very whole food, plant-based, SOS-free recipes I've been developing. So my mind is like, how can I get more veg? How can I get more whole food into any recipe I do? So this was coming up as I was putting the next batch in, and I thought, I remembered I used to love this caraway onion rye bread that my mother used to buy. And I'd sit at the toaster and toast this and slather it with butter, and I just couldn't get enough of it. Well, I won't be doing that again. Yeah, as a 17-year-old basketball player, that didn't show any real detriment at the time. But we understand that's probably not the best way to go anymore with the processed flour and all that saturated fat. But how can I recreate the comfort that was created by those tastes and textures? So I thought, what if I really fine dice some onion and add caraway seed to the dough that's left? And I did that. Heaven. So it's really interesting how these difficulties.
Perceived difficulties.
I like that. Perceived difficulties. Or if we want to look at it another way, Connie often says the gift in the difficulty, where the gold is. If we look at these in a new way, our lives just move forward in just so much better ways.
Yeah, we expand what's possible.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. Try this recipe. It is so quick and simple and delicious. We used it too as a flatbread and made open-faced avocado sandwiches. It was really good.
That was our avocado toast.
Yeah.
And in the recipe, you'll see a lot of ideas for how you can add more vegetable and flavoring and actually make them into larger, like a pizza crust. Adding tomato and Italian spice in it, would be a great crust. And anyway, there's a lot of ideas on how to use these. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.